You want me to put that on my Tudor?
This one's wife. Archie cut adrift. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. The relationship between a parental narcissist and a child is perhaps one which produces quite possibly the cruelest outcome. First of all, the parental narcissist has no actual emotional empathy for that child. Despite what they might say, that parent does not love that child. The consequence of that is that the child may well be subjected to a range of behaviours which are problematic for that child. Those behaviours can include physical and sexual abuse, neglect, emotional neglect, being a distant parent, never showing no interest in the child's development. I had an instance in consultation where a very concerned father and husband to a narcissist was having to deal with a situation whereby his narcissist wife would place their young child, just a baby, in a state of sensory deprivation within a crib, utilising blackout materials so the child couldn't see anything at all, resulting in the father regularly having to go in and remove it all in order to protect the child. The child, of course, is at risk of becoming a narcissist themselves as a consequence of the possibility of the genetic predisposition being passed on to them by the narcissist parent, and, of course, being thrust into a lack of control environment, whether it be direct abuse, neglect, a grade B environment, always told it's not good enough, or even a gilded environment whereby they're given everything and told that they're ultra special without being able to develop and find things out for themselves. To the extent that Archie exists, he finds himself similarly at risk with regard to what he might become. And, despite what this one's wife will tell the outside world about what she is as a mother, because that is facade management, the fact is that Archie's life is not as full as it ought to be. That's not to say that he is subjected to any direct physical abuse. There is no evidence of that. But as I've explained elsewhere, the most likely outcome in relation to the way that this one's wife behaves in relation to her son is that it's a distant relationship, that she has very little to do with him. We have some evidence to support that. This is shown by the fact that she regularly travels without him. There have been the trips to Jamaica, to Portugal, to Dusseldorf, to Nigeria, to Whistler, etc., where the children are not present. And thus, Archie finds himself once again spending time either with his grandma, Doria, or more likely with staff, a nanny that looks after him. In some respects, this is actually a blessing for him, because it means that he is not subjected to the awful behaviours of this one's wife all of the time, and instead is subjected, in the case of a nanny, to somebody who is likely to have emotional empathy, and therefore they act as an intervener. What this means is that they effectively disrupt the lack of control environment. So, if that genetic predisposition towards narcissism has been passed on to him, it is not a guarantee that he will become a narcissist himself, because he may not have the suitable exposure to a lack of control environment, because he spends time with somebody that is genuine towards him, that cares about him, that exhibits emotional empathy. As I've explained in prior videos, the likelihood is that not only is this one's wife away from a lot in terms of not physically being in the same place as him, but also the fact that when she is in the house, she'll be busy scrolling through social media, making Zoom calls, locked away in a study, only occasionally interacting with the children, perhaps to bark an order at them, or to tell the nanny to go and take them into the garden because I've got another one of my headaches coming on. All of this distance between this one's wife and Archie is also supported by the suggestion that when it comes to schooling, this one's wife does not take him to school, and that she has him signed in under a different name, under the auspices of privacy. The fact that she won't take him to school, to nursery, is being done because she claims that this is as a consequence of protecting his privacy. This information, conveyed by Neil Sean, was that she doesn't do the school run because apparently she doesn't want people to align him with her. And he also enters school not under the name of Archie or the nursery, but simply under another name to keep the privacy going. Thus, Archie is cut adrift. For most parents, it's something that has to be done, taking children to school until such as they're able, if they live near enough, to walk to school. But when they're very little, they need taking there themselves to ensure that they don't come to harm en route and that they actually get there. And thus, I know from the discussions that I've had with parents, it's both a pleasure and a bind. It's a pleasure to perhaps walk along to school together, having a chat, and picking them up thereafter, listening to how their day has gone. In other instances, it becomes a little bit of a bind as a consequence of the necessity of doing it before having to rush off to get to work, or in some instances having to arrange for somebody else to take them because you've got an existing commitment that conflicts. But the point is, for the most part, this is something that is done by one of the parents. Yet here, this one's wife, once again, doesn't bother. It's dressed up as being for privacy, but that isn't the actual reason. It's simply because she has no interest. She would much rather be swanning around the 47,000 flushing toileted Monty Shit Show mansion, making Zoom calls to her agents, screaming at them as to why she hasn't got the latest part in The Bodyguard 2, or trying to find some strawberries to pass off as an authentic jam, than actually take her son to school. He is an inconvenience to her. He is there simply as a little mirror that is to be utilised to make her look good, but she has no real interest in bringing him up. She just uses him as part of the facade management to show to the outside world, look, I'm a marvellous mother. And this information from Neil Sean, if correct, demonstrating that Archie is just further cut adrift, is entirely conceivable with regard to the behaviour of a mid-range narcissist that is so self-absorbed she just focuses on herself rather than her child. Ultimately, as I pointed out earlier, this actually might be to Archie's benefit. Whilst you may well think that it's rather sad that a child doesn't have the engagement of his mother, those of you who were involved with narcissist parents will undoubtedly confirm that it would have been better if you had had little involvement with them. Or, of course, that you'd had an alternative parent altogether. But once again we see, as per the evidence that has been suggested, that this one's wife demonstrates her icy distance from Archie, as once again he is cut adrift. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.